Last spring, I stood in my own kitchen barefoot on cold tile, while my husband's ex stirred cream into her coffee as if she owned the place. Sunlight spilled across the counter, catching on her diamond watch, a gift from Eric back when she still wore his last name. She laughed sharp and careless and looked right at me. "Rachel, you don't really think you're his type, do you?" Eric said nothing, not a word. He just watched hands in his pockets, letting her words echo through the room. That was the moment I realized I was the only one here, without a seat at my own table. Boston March. The city half-frozen, dirty snow piled in the street corners, wind scraping the last hope of spring off the river. I'd been up since dawn, cleaning for this brunch, thinking it was a good idea to finally bury the awkwardness between me and Madison Scott. She was Eric's ex, the friendly one, the one who just wanted to catch up. He assured me she'd moved on. That inviting her was a sign we could all be adults. By 10 a.m., she was in my living room acting like she'd never left. She brought fresh croissants from the French bakery on Boylston, my favorite, not that she would have known unless Eric had told her. I stood at the counter, knife in hand, pretending to focus on fruit salad. Eric leaned on the fridge, scrolling his phone, glancing up every few minutes as Madison filled the silence with old stories. Vacations, private jokes, the way Eric used to only drink black coffee until she converted him. She looked me over, smiling. "Rachel, how did you and Eric meet again? I forget." "Oh, right. He told me it was kind of a rebound, wasn't it?" I felt my face heat, but I pressed the blade down, slicing strawberries in slow, perfect halves. "I'm surprised you let him eat carbs now," she went on. "He never used to not when we were together." Eric cleared his throat, still not meeting my eyes. "Things change," he muttered. Madison turned to him. Or maybe some people just lower their standards. For a second, I thought the world would go silent. But no, Eric just shrugged. He didn't defend me, didn't defend us. He just let her words hang there, sour and heavy. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, heart pounding in my ears. All I could think was, if I break now, they both win. So I smiled, picked up the coffee pot and poured her another cup, steady as steel. "You're right," I said quietly. "Some people do lower their standards, and sometimes they realize it too late." Madison blinked, surprised I bit back. Eric just stared at the floor, silent as a coward. I didn't say another word, but right then, something shifted in me. It was the day I learned humiliation is like water. It only drowns you if you keep holding it in. I spent the rest of that Sunday going through the motions, dishes, clinking polite laughter, echoing through hallways that suddenly felt too small. Madison made herself at home. She draped her coat over my reading chair, complimented my decor with a faint note of sarcasm. "This color's so safe. Very you, Rachel." Eric stayed on his phone, barely present except when Madison called him Rick, the old nickname she'd used in college. He answered to it every time. Lunch was a minefield. Madison recounted stories from their day's trips to the Cape, his first apartment, how he once slept through a snowstorm on her sofa. Eric never once looked at me. "Remember that time I had to carry you up 3 flights because you sprained your ankle?" Madison asked, turning toward him. He smiled a soft, private curve. "Yeah, that was wild." She nudged his arm. "Some men never change, huh?" That's when I felt it. Not jealousy, not even anger, just this cold, sinking clarity that I was playing hostess to my own erasure. After they left Madison with her designer coat, Eric with a distracted, "See you later," I found myself cleaning up alone. Coffee rings on the table, lipstick stains on my favorite mug, the smell of her perfume lingering sharp as regret. I picked up the mug, scrubbing harder than I needed to. "This is not your home anymore. You're just a guest here, Rachel." The thought stung, but I refused to cry. Instead, I went for a walk along the river scarf, tight against the wind feet crunching old ice. With every step, I replayed the morning. Every look, every laugh, every time Eric chose silence over me. A memory surfaced, my mother's voice, fierce and unyielding. "You teach people how to treat you, honey. If you let them walk all over you once, they'll do it forever." I paused on a bridge, breath fogging in the cold. For the first time in years, I let the humiliation settle, let it freeze hard and sharp, and I decided never again. I wouldn't break today, but I was done making room for people who only ever took. When I got home, Eric was already in bed, lights out, pretending to sleep. I didn't say goodnight. I just lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, and started planning how I'd take my life back. The next morning, I made breakfast in silence. Eric came down late, tie-crooked hair still damp from a rushed shower. He avoided my eyes, scrolled through his phone, and muttered something about meetings. I placed a plate of eggs and toast in front of him. He grunted thanks, then asked, "Madison texted. She said she had a nice time. You two seem to get along." There it was again, that refusal to acknowledge reality, that careful sidestep as if yesterday had been perfectly normal. "She did most of the talking," I replied. He didn't notice my tone, or maybe he did and chose not to. I watched him eat, methodical, mechanical. For a moment, I wondered how many mornings I'd spent watching him like this, waiting for some sign of tenderness. But Eric only ever gave what was easy to give. After he left, I called my mother. She answered on the third ring, voice brisk as always, "Rachel, is everything okay?" I almost lied, almost said yes, but something in me, maybe that piece she'd built herself, spoke up instead. "Mom, how do you know when it's time to stop trying?" There was a pause. "You know when you're the only one rowing the boat, honey. You get tired and everyone else wonders why you're sweating." I let out a shaky laugh. "Did Dad ever make you feel like you were less than enough?" She snorted. "He tried once. I taught him otherwise. Or if you're not up for teaching, you pack your things and row to a new shore." That was my mother, steel under soft skin. I spent the rest of the day cleaning, not because the house was dirty, but because I needed to scrub the feeling of being small out of the corners. Madison's mug washed, dried, shoved to the back of the cabinet. Eric's favorite blanket folded, then stuffed into the linen closet. By the time the sun set, I felt hollow but clear. That night, Eric came home late. No apology, no explanation, just a tired body dropping next to me in bed. He reached for me in the dark, familiar and half-hearted. For the first time, I pulled away. His hand hovered, fell. He said nothing. Neither did I. But in the silence, I finally heard myself again, and the sound was louder than his love had ever been. 2 weeks passed. Madison didn't visit, but her presence lingered like a stain. Eric grew more distant, coming home late, spending weekends catching up on work, his phone always turned face down. One Friday night, he texted that he'd be out late. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Tara. She picked up on the first ring. "Tell me you're not cleaning on a Friday night." I smiled, forced but grateful. "Can we meet? I just need someone to talk to who isn't furniture." She was at my door in 20 minutes with takeout and a bottle of red. We sat on the living room floor, backs against the couch, eating noodles and sipping wine straight from the bottle. He's letting her win, I said, voice flat. He stands there and just lets her erase me. Tara rolled her eyes. He's not letting her win, Rach. He's choosing not to fight for you. That's worse. Her words landed hard. I stared at the lamp, watched the shadows flicker. What do I do? I asked. How do I make him see me again? She put a hand on my shoulder. You stop trying. You see yourself first. You make sure the next time someone looks at you, you're standing tall enough they can't help but notice. Fueled by Tara's fire, I made a plan. The next day, I dressed in a sharp suit and went to Eric's office unannounced. I brought lunch, a peace offering, and a test. His assistant smiled, clearly uncomfortable. Eric looked up surprised. What are you doing here? I set the bag on his desk. Thought I'd join you for lunch? Unless you're too busy. He glanced at his calendar, then at the hallway. Actually, I have a meeting in 10. Right on cue, Madison appeared. Her heels, her perfect lipstick, her smug smile. She didn't hide her delight. Oh, Rachel, what a surprise. I held her gaze, just making sure Eric doesn't starve. She laughed. Don't worry, I've been taking care of him. Something inside me snapped softly but irrevocably. Is that why he comes home empty? The silence crackled. Eric stood up, face tense. Rachel, not here. I looked him dead in the eye. If you want her, Eric, take her. But don't expect me to stay and watch. Madison smiled, cold as January. Eric hesitated, torn and weak as always. I walked out, head high, hands shaking. That night I cried harder than I had in years. Not for him, not for Madison, for the woman I had let them shrink. But somewhere in that storm of tears, I found the steel my mother gave me, and I promised myself next time I wouldn't lose. The weeks after that confrontation were a blur. Eric barely spoke to me. When he did, it was clipped, distracted, as if he was already halfway out the door. I stopped waiting for him to notice. I started waking up before sunrise, running the empty streets by the river. The air burned my lungs, but the movement made me feel real, like I still had some say over my own story. Some mornings I'd come home and find Eric already gone. Other days he'd be sitting at the kitchen table, coffee untouched, eyes hollow. He never apologized. He never asked if I was okay. He just existed in the same space, and for the first time I realized I could leave and he might never even notice. One evening, after a particularly long run, I called Tara. I can't do this anymore, I told her, voice barely above a whisper. She didn't ask what I meant. She just said, "You don't have to, but you do have to decide what comes next." I stared at the reflection in my living room window, my own face tired and sharper than I remembered. Is this it? Is this who I've become? Just another woman who disappeared behind someone else's shadow? No, not anymore. That night, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a list. On one side, everything I'd given up for Eric. On the other, everything I still wanted. The list was longer than I expected. At the bottom, I wrote, "You are allowed to want more." I tore the page out, folded it, and slipped it into my wallet. The next morning, I told Eric I was going to stay with my mother for a while. He didn't fight me, didn't ask me to stay. He just nodded as if he'd been waiting for this moment and was relieved it wasn't his responsibility to stop me. I packed a bag, left a note on the counter, and locked the door behind me. As I drove away, I didn't cry. I didn't look back. Instead, I rolled down the window and let the March wind wash the last of the humiliation from my skin. It was the first time in years I felt free. I spent the first few days at my mother's house relearning how to breathe. She fussed over me. made homemade soup, left herbal tea on my nightstand, never asked for details, just let me heal at my own pace. Her silence was a kind of mercy. Tara called every night, ready to talk strategy, yet she'd ask and I'd almost smile. But first, I needed to put myself back together. One afternoon, I sat in the porch with my mother, the sun warming my legs through a faded blanket. She looked over her knitting and said, "You're stronger than you think, Rachel. You always were. Sometimes you just needed someone to remind you." I nodded. "I'm tired of being the one who gets trampled. I want my life back." She smiled, fierce and proud. "Then take it, piece by piece. You don't owe anyone your silence." The next day, Tara came by with a folder thick with paperwork. She had talked to her cousin who knew a lawyer, James Porter. He specialized in messy divorces and financial forensics. He'll help you track every asset Tara said. Eric doesn't get to keep everything, not after what he put you through. We sat at the kitchen table, Tara and James, who wore wire-frame glasses and had the calm, clinical air of someone who'd seen it all. He asked questions Eric never had. He listened. He wrote things down. And at the end, he looked me in the eye and said, "You have more power here than you think. If you want to fight, I'll fight with you." For the first time, I believed it. This wasn't about Madison anymore, wasn't about getting Eric back. It was about getting myself back. That night, I sat by the window, city lights flickering far off, and imagined what freedom might look like. It wasn't revenge, it was peace. A room where my name wasn't spoken like an afterthought. A future where I chose, who sat at my table. And for the first time, I didn't dread what tomorrow would bring. The first real move was simple. I filed for divorce. James Porter handled the paperwork with a quiet precision that made me feel both reassured and oddly exposed. He warned me Eric may get ugly. Be ready. I was. I had spent years preparing for ugly. I just didn't know until now that I had a choice in what happened next. Eric got served the next morning. Within an hour, my phone buzzed. Voicemail. "Rachel, what are you doing? Let's just talk about this. Don't make this a big deal." I didn't call back. Instead, I changed my locks, moved my things out, and told Tara I'm not hiding anymore. The messages kept coming. Eric showed up at my mother's house twice, pounding on the door, voice cracking as he pleaded. It was never about her, Rachel. You're blowing this out of proportion. But I saw him for what he was. A man afraid of losing control. Not of losing me. Madison, of course, tried to insert herself. She called me from a block number voice, syrupy sweet. "Rachel, can we be adults about this? You and I both know Eric isn't built to be alone." I almost laughed. "Let him find out." And I hung up. James uncovered more than I expected hidden accounts. A second credit card. Hotel bills dated months before Madison's friendly brunch. When confronted, Eric tried to explain it all away. "It's complicated. We weren't even Rachel." "Just listen to me." I stopped listening. I met with James, signed the paperwork, and prepared my statement for the court. The day of the hearing, I wore a navy suit and red lipstick, my armor. Eric showed up, rumpled angry, with Madison trailing behind like an afterthought. He tried to catch my eye as I sat across from him, but I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. When the judge called my name, I stood up straight, voice clear. I am not here to fight over scraps. I am here to reclaim what's mine. The judge nodded. Madison glared. Eric's face fell, and in that moment, for the first time, I felt powerful. Not because I was winning, but because I was finally done playing small. The court process wasn't glamorous. It was long, exhausting, and humiliating weeks of paperwork hearings and lawyers arguing over things that once felt like home. Eric tried everything. He cried, he yelled, he promised I can change Rachel. Just give me one more chance. But I saw through it. Every apology felt rehearsed, every tear too late. Madison tried to play the victim. She showed up to hearings with new hair and new stories, telling the judge Rachel was always jealous of me. I just wanted to help. But James dismantled their lies with facts, emails, and receipts. He made sure every hidden asset came to light. He fought for every dollar, every right, every bit of dignity I'd surrendered. The day the judge signed the final decree, it rained hard. I sat in my car outside the courthouse engine, off just listening to the sound of water pounding the roof. I thought about everything I'd lost. Then I thought about everything I'd just reclaimed. My name, my future, my sense of self. Tara called as I pulled away. "You did it," she said. "You really did it." For the first time in forever, I let myself believe her. I moved into a small apartment by the river, a place with sunlight-clean walls and no ghosts. The first thing I bought was a kitchen table, mine and mine alone. No more making room for people who didn't respect my presence. No more apologizing for taking up space. I invited my mother and Tara over for dinner. We raised our glasses, cheap wine laughter echoing off bare walls. And I realized freedom doesn't feel like winning the lottery. It feels like breathing without flinching. Eric tried to reach out, calls, emails, even a letter. I didn't respond. Madison unfollowed me on everything. I heard she moved out of Boston looking for a new life to latch onto. They got what they wanted each other, but they also got exactly what they deserved. As for me, I finally belonged at my own table, and that was enough. Word travels fast in a city like Boston. It didn't take long for news to reach me. Eric lost his job 3 months after the divorce. Turns out the firm frowned on the kind of secrets James Porter uncovered: hidden accounts, misused company cards, unexplained expenses. I heard about it from Tara first. "He's blaming you, you know. Says you ruined his life." I shrugged. I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped covering for him. Madison lasted even less time. Without Eric's paycheck, she struggled to keep up the image designer bag's upscale gym dinners out. Her new friends were quick to turn. She moved to a smaller apartment. Someone told me she started selling vintage clothes online. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. One afternoon, I ran into Eric at the grocery store. He looked older, gaunt eyes dull. He hesitated, then approached. "Rachel," he said, voice brittle. "Can we talk?" I held up my basket. I had nothing left to say, Eric. He nodded. "I miss you." I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I no longer had the energy to give. He stood there lost while I walked away. Tara and I celebrated the 1-year mark since my new beginning with pizza and cheap champagne in my apartment. "Do you ever regret any of it?" she asked. I thought about it. All the years wasted, all the nights I cried, the humiliation, the anger. "Not anymore," I said. "Regret is just a way of giving them more time in my head." We laughed loud and free. Sometimes I still saw Madison's posts pop up in mutual circles, filtered selfies, long captions about growth, never a word about me or Eric. But I stopped reading. Her story wasn't mine anymore. As for Eric, he faded out of my life completely. No more calls, no more letters. Whatever story he told about us, it didn't matter. Because for the first time, I was living a story that was mine alone. And I was finally, beautifully okay. A year after the divorce spring came late to Boston. I stood at my own kitchen window, coffee in hand, watching the river thaw, the ice breaking apart in slow, determined lines. The apartment was quiet, no voices, no footsteps, no one questioning my choices. Just me. And it was enough. My new job at the nonprofit paid less than Eric's World ever did, but I went to work every day knowing I made a difference. I started teaching creative writing workshops at the library. Women showed up with stories harder than mine. We wrote, we laughed, we stitched each other back together one chapter at a time. Tara met someone good. I watched her fall in love with someone who saw her worth from the start. My mother came by often, always with food, always with that proud, sharp glint in her eye. "You built this," she'd say, and I'd believe her. On the anniversary of my freedom, I bought myself fresh flowers, set the kitchen table with real plates, real candles, cooked a dinner for one fillet of salmon roasted potatoes and a glass of wine. I sat down, took a breath, and realized I was no longer waiting for anyone to join me, no longer making space for ghosts, no longer apologizing for the size of my dreams. Sometimes, late at night, I remembered the woman who once thought humiliation was the price for love. I wished I could reach back and tell her, "You don't have to break to belong." But in the end, she survived. She became me. As I blew out the candle that night, I whispered to the quiet, "This life is mine." And for the first time in forever, I knew it was true.